A war of words happened today in college football. It's the story of the offseason already. It's only May 19th, and we've got college football story of the offseason. Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher trading jabs about NIL and buying recruiting classes and dirty practices and all that juicy stuff. We're going to talk about it. My name is Michael Borky. Thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe if you have not already. I go live, do live streams here on the channel. Also going to do more of these instant commentary videos with you, so subscribe. Also like the video if you like what you hear. I'm always glad that you guys are with me. Don't forget to follow on Twitter and Facebook under the same name, Michael Borky. Usually you can hear me on Sports Talk Mississippi, a statewide daily sports talk radio show all across the state of Mississippi. But yeah, doing a little extra commentary for you tonight on the college football story of the offseason, Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher. And in case you've been living under a rock, here's a little bit of a background for you before we get started. I encourage you to watch especially Jimbo Fisher's press conference today, where he really took his shots at Nick Saban, decided to go scorched earth. Honestly, you need to watch it. You need to see what Nick Saban said, hear what Nick Saban said on Wednesday night about Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. But here's a little bit of background. On Wednesday night, talking in Birmingham, Nick Saban called out Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M when talking about name, image, and likeness. He said that Texas A&M bought every player on their team with NIL deals in the past recruiting cycle. He also took a jab at Jackson State's Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, as he prefers to be called, when he mentioned that Deion Sanders has a player on his roster that got $1 million NIL deal, and he claimed to have read that in the paper. Now, Deion Sanders has since denied that accusation. The player himself has also denied that accusation, and Deion Sanders just a few minutes ago actually said he wants to play Alabama in football, and he wants to have a conversation with Nick Saban about it publicly, though. He wants to talk with Nick Saban publicly to air the grievances out for everybody to hear. I don't expect that to happen. I hope it does, but I don't expect it. So Nick Saban said that about Texas A&M on Wednesday night. As you can imagine, that fired Jimbo Fisher up pretty good. He called a press conference for 10 o'clock the next morning, as I record this morning at 10 o'clock, and he fired off. For about 8 minutes, Jimbo Fisher went scorched earth on Nick Saban. He called him, among many other things, a narcissist. He encouraged the media to dig into his past and people that have coached under him, to look into how the God, as he referred to Nick Saban as, became what he is. He also took a shot at the advantages that Alabama used to have, that Nick Saban talking about parity and Jimbo insinuating what people like me have for a while. There hasn't been parity in college football, and it was a joke to talk about. 8 minutes worth of mudslinging towards Nick Saban, narcissism. He's not the God that you think he is in college football. Ask people that coached under him before. There's a reason they don't want to coach under him again. And on and on and on for 8 minutes. Jimbo Fisher also claimed, as well as Nick Saban also claimed, that he did nothing, and his program has done nothing that is against the rules or laws. Nick Saban also, when he was talking about Jimbo Fisher, said the Aggies bought their entire team, and he claimed that his program did not buy a single player. So they went back and forth, and then Nick Saban later goes on Sirius XM College and kind of apologizes. He apologizes to Jimbo Fisher, saying that he should not have singled out an individual program, that he just cares about the future. I can't even get through it. Cares about the future of college football. Ross Bjork, the athletic director for Texas A&M, also jumped in to this feud. He called it personal, and that Nick Saban is worried that, or threatened, I think is the word he used, that Texas A&M is upsetting the status quo in college football. Again, he called it personal, and he even called in the commissioner of the SEC and claimed it was a sportsmanship bylaw violation for Nick Saban to say what he did. A pretty pathetic move, honestly, if you ask me. If you're an athletic director who encourages your football coach to call one SEC West coach a clown and another one a narcissist, you can't be the one telling the teacher in this situation. But he did it, and the SEC decided to publicly reprimand both Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, and here we are. So you had Saban saying that Texas A&M bought their class. You had Jimbo firing back in a press conference with accusations of narcissism and things much dirtier than that. The athletic director at A&M steps in, tells the teacher on sportsmanship violations, and the SEC has reprimanded both. So who's right in this situation? That's kind of what the next step is, right? Who's right in this situation? Both are right and both are wrong. Nick Saban spoke truth when he was talking about Texas A&M. He absolutely spoke truth when he was talking about Texas A&M and how they were able to sign the greatest recruiting class in the history of college football. It takes a level of naive that I can't even fathom to think that Texas A&M did not sign the number one recruiting class in college football without some level of inducements via NIL. That is how college football works. That is how college football has always worked. It hadn't looked quite like this. Maybe the money hasn't been as strong, but personal experiences as well as talking to people in the media and coaching, formerly in coaching and former players, and listening to all of the above discuss college football, this is how it has always been. So again, you have to be completely and totally naive to think that Texas A&M did not sign some of these kids, if not all of these kids, because of NIL inducements. Nick Saban was absolutely telling the truth when he threw that accusation at Texas A&M. He was also completely full of it when he claimed that his program does not do the same. Completely and totally full of it. And the same thing applies to Jimbo Fisher. He spoke truth today. He absolutely, in those 8 minutes, told a lot of things that are true. If you are going to have the dominance that Alabama has had under Nick Saban, you have to be an incredibly good coach. You have to be a great talent evaluator. You have to be a great recruiter. You have to be able to establish a system and a culture that a bunch of young people will buy into, and you have to be adaptable, and you also have to cheat your rear end off. That has absolutely always been true. The Alabama football program has absolutely, undeniably signed players because of inducements to sign with the school. Again, it takes a level of naive that I cannot fathom to think that that is not something that has gone on and continues to go on at a place like that. That is major college football. It is now. It is what it has always been. You can cite example after example after example of how this is how it has always been, and not conjecture, not people just talking. I'm talking about tangible examples, provable examples that this is how it worked in college football. Nick Saban told truth. He was also kind of full of it. Jimbo Fisher spoke truth. He was also kind of full of it, as is expected from people in their position. So who's right? They're both right. Honestly, they're both wrong as well. Why now is the question that keeps coming up into my head. Why did this feud begin now? Why has this happened now? I've got a theory on this, and I think at this point you can call it more than a theory. I think Nick Saban on Wednesday night, when he was talking about Texas A&M, in the last few weeks when he's been talking about the lack of parity in college football and we need to try to restore it to its old ways, I think it was a call to action. Either our people need to be doing this or we are going to get left behind. Because although Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach to ever live, and everything I said before is true, culture, talent evaluation, staff hiring, everything he does is exceptional. But they have also engaged in the improprieties, if you will, in recruiting, because that's what you have to do. Alabama, though, has given Nick Saban the most everything, the most recruiting budget, the most assistants, the ability to hire analysts, and everything like that. He's enjoyed the most advantages in the sport. That is an objective fact, I believe. but not in this case. So now that NIL has come, for whatever reason, whether it's lack of uh, a booster base that has the kind of money that you see from Texas A&M and Texas and others, or the unwillingness to do these kind of things above board now, I believe that this is coming from a place of losing grip. Now, I need to be careful with how I say that because I don't think suddenly Alabama is going to start going 8-4 every year under Nick Saban. That's not what I believe. But the only reason that this is happening now is because now in the NIL era, Alabama doesn't have the most of something. And this something just so happens to be the most important thing in recruiting today. Now, you can argue that that shouldn't be the case. You can argue that that's bad for the sport, whatever, but that is the objective truth that NIL right now is the most important thing in college football. And right now, Alabama does not have the same ability of a place like Texas A&M. That is why Texas A&M was called out. That was why this has been happening for a couple weeks now. That was why it happened this week in Birmingham, talking about how A&M bought their entire roster. This is coming from a place of worry. This is not what some people say. He's just warning us. I've heard that a lot over the last few days. Oh, this is just Nick Saban warning the rest of college football. Warning us of what exactly? What is he warning us of? Is it that he's going to go out and use NIL and sign the best players? Because this past year, they signed the number 2 recruiting class in college football. The year prior, number 1. The year prior, number 2. The year prior, number 1. So what is he warning us of exactly? That he's really reluctant today to use NIL, but now that we've forced him into it, he's going to use NIL to sign the best players in America. He already signs largely the best players in America. You really couldn't do a whole lot better than what they're currently doing. It's not a warning. It is only a warning to his own people that if they don't get on this, that if they don't match what is going on, they're going to get left behind. No other explanation is as obvious as that one. Also, I think Jimbo Fisher just doesn't know how to handle this. You saw a similar reaction from him and his athletic director a couple months ago now, responding to Lane Kiffin, talking about the luxury tax with him. You saw a similar reaction. It would be very easy, or should be very easy, for Texas A&M to respond to something like this. To me, it's very simple. Saban said what? Oh, well, that sounds like sour grapes to me. I don't have time to focus on somebody else's program. We're just going to keep doing things the right way over here at Texas A&M. We're really working hard here. My staff is working hard. The players are working hard. We're proud of what we've been able to do, and we're not going to spend and waste any time on somebody else's accusations into our program, which are not true. Seems pretty easy to me, right? That makes sense. That's not that hard to do, but for whatever reason, these kind of accusations, which have a lot of truth behind them, are sparking this fire, this explosion, and today it was scorched earth time. Jimbo Fisher only called Lane Kiffin a clown. He specifically talked about Nick Saban in ways that I have never heard a college coach talk about another coach in this way before, so publicly. I have never seen anything like this today, and I think it's in part because the new era is not being as kind to Nick Saban as it is other programs, and that Jimbo Fisher just doesn't know how to handle this because there's a much easier way to handle this, and he has not taken that path. So the final question is what happens? What happens next? We have this blood feud between Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, and Ross Bjork has gone to the principal's office, even though his side was also in the wrong, and the SEC has reprimanded the coaches. What happens now? The first thing, the most important thing I hope happens is people wake up. That's what I hope happens. People wake up because this new era has really shown me anyway that people didn't quite understand what college football was all about, especially the people at the highest level of college football. There have always been stories like this, and you've seen today, or you may not have seen, but today some former college players, guys that have played in the NFL or are past their prime in their playing career that are doing other things have talked about what they or people they know received in recruiting, specifically mentioning Alabama. These stories now are impossible to ignore because it used to just be stuff on message boards or one or two reporters were willing to talk about it publicly, but they were really kind of outliers. Those stories were there, but they were ignored. People didn't listen to them. They thought that there was some level of purity in college football. Now that you've had two coaches in the SEC West throw these kind of accurate accusations at each other, maybe people will wake up to the fact that this is what college football has always been. This is what it will continue to be, and just accept it and enjoy it for what it is. Besides all the corruption, it's a fun product. We love it on Saturdays, and move on and stop this bickering about money and programs and parity, because none of it has ever been reality. It's always been dirty. It's always been corrupt. There's never been parity. And now we can just accept it and move on and stop talking about stuff like this and just enjoy the games again and the sport for what it is. Also, what happens is October 8th, when they play each other in Tuscaloosa, is an absolute must watch. Nothing like a little offseason drama to add some spice to a game that is upcoming on the schedule. And what is fascinating to me in all this is Nick Saban backing off. Nick Saban apologizing. Jimbo Fisher goes scorched earth on him, called him a narcissist, told people to look into him, called him dirty, leveled some vague, but leveled some accusations against Nick Saban. And for the first time, I saw a guy like him back off. It's fascinating. He backed away. I can't help but wonder if the message was received, if there was a lot of truth behind what Jimbo Fisher said today. I know there is, but you're now seeing it in action, because if there was nothing to hide, if there was no truth to what Jimbo was saying, don't you think there would have been a response? Don't you think that there would have been a counter as opposed to an apology trying to put the fire out? Nick Saban backed away. He backed off. I don't know what this means for this feud. If I had to guess, you're not going to hear anything from this until that game gets played. I think both sides are going to calm down and shut up. But did this open up some kind of a precedent? Because now, for the first time, you have coaches publicly throwing accusations like this at each other. Lane Kiffin got into it a few months ago. You have the Pittsburgh coach, Pat Narduzzi, reportedly calling Lincoln Riley directly to get mad at him about his receiver being tampered with on his campus, or excuse me, while he was on his team. Is this the beginning of more public feuding? Is this going to inspire others to do the same when they feel like they've been wronged or they've seen wrong elsewhere? I'm not sure. Maybe not. Maybe Greg Sankey will get this under control and get everybody to play nice behind the scenes, but I can't help but wonder if this isn't the end, not for this feud, because I think it is for this one. I think both sides are going to calm down, because it's best for both sides for them to calm down. It got really, really close to pushing that big red button today, but I can't help but wonder if this is going to inspire others to start calling people out publicly, because the czar, as Jimbo put it, of college football did just that. So if he does it, what's stopping others from doing it too? Either way, what a story for the offseason. I mean, it does not get much better than a feud like this. A lot of truth, a lot of BS, see through it. This is what college football has always been. It's just now getting played out in public for the world to see. And maybe we can stop denying the existence and just enjoy the sport for what it is. This was great theater, though, especially if you're a wrestling fan. Thank you so much for tuning in. Going live on Sunday. So I don't even know what day Sunday is. I'm going live on Sunday, the 22nd. So I'll see you guys then. Sunday, the 22nd, I'll be live, 8 o'clock Central, joining the conversation there. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on